Hey, fellas.
What's up?
What's happening? Dave, you know what? We've made this mistake a million times and we're getting so much better at it. But we've had some of the coolest conversations in the show history before we hit record.
Oh, right.
Now,
yeah.
So now when
That's
people,
inevitable.
Yeah, it's crazy. And then now, so when people come, I'm like, you know what? Hey, I like talking to you, but let's just hit record. So
let's go.
Just
go.
Just keep going. So we're getting better. But anyway, welcome, man.
Yeah. A while back, I had to do the auto record when I did things because it was always so exciting. Like you jump right in.
Just jumping in there.
Yep.
Yeah, we had a penis doctor mention scrotox after we hit stop. I'm like, why the fuck didn't you mention this?
Like and he was kind of like guarded the entire time, and then we turn off the camera and that's it.
Yeah, I was like, yeah. Now you go.
Now
crazy.
We get the good stuff.
Yeah. So So we just try to be better about it. But hey, man, welcome. Thanks.
Thank you so much. I'm super excited.
Yeah, no, we're psyched. And you know what? Tom is great and all, but I always like having somebody else to talk to.
I get boring.
Fair enough. Yep.
I tire easily.
So lay the quick groundwork because I just want to jump into it. But basically, we have a connection through mutual friends, and that friend has got some new technology that kind of really doesn't touch our wheelhouse here directly, but we mention AI every single time, and there we go.
Pretty much.
And 32 seconds in, we said it for the first time.
I gotta get the buzzer.
We gotta get a buzzer for this. It's become a thing. So there's a lot of AI talk in here. But the health part, which is where they started with this, is definitely square in our wheelhouse. And when I found out there was somebody out there who'd really taken a deep dive into this, there was like 10 ways from Sunday why we had to have this conversation.
Yeah. I mean, it's inevitable. And because you guys are talking about it, you already know what the future holds.
Oh yeah.
Right. So, is complete disruption.
Oh, 100%. Yeah. And I was at an AI speech this morning, and I'll get into that when it gets up, but it's crazy. Yeah. So listen, let's waste not any more time. Tell us a quick little, how you got here and lay that groundwork, and then we'll jump into the tech.
Yeah, perfect. I would say for the sake of this type of podcast, my 30-second is I am just born to understand science and health and wellness, human performance. So since fourth grade, I've really wanted to make it to the NFL. And so I did everything in my power to understand human performance. I sucked at a lot of basic things in school, but I had no problem understanding biochemistry, molecular biology, those sorts of things. And so my whole path, my whole life has just been guided by that. I used to skip school in 7th, 8th grade to go to the library and read what Muscle and Fitness magazine had been publishing about creatine, right? And I would actually look up the citations and try to read the research way early on. And it was just this lifelong passion that led to going to undergrad, getting the double major in biochemistry and molecular biology, doing undergrad research, getting published in biomechanics and energetics. Played semi-pro football. I did not make it to the NFL. I have too many broken bones and too many injuries and lots of stories about that. But that led to a career in sports medicine. And so because I was in the emergency room 4 times a year, it led to this even more passion of understanding what the healthcare system does and does not do for you. And so I chose chiropractic because when I deep dove into medical path, I was on the MD PhD route. And I just realized that there was no real human connection and flexibility, entrepreneurship. I didn't even know what entrepreneurship was coming from northern Wisconsin, but I knew I wanted to be a chiropractor because it allowed me to treat patients the way that I wanted to treat patients. And so then I had a career and did 10 years in sports medicine in Madison, Wisconsin, was a medical director of 12 different sports teams, worked with all the pros, Olympics, did personal coaching, full stop coaching as well, nuts to bolts, everything. Had a big integrated practice, was one of the first chiropractors in Wisconsin to become a federally qualified hospital. I did corporate contracts in corporate medicine. I dictated policy for 25,000 patients at another hospital. I helped dictate policy for the state of Wisconsin. And then I got really sick and burnt out and lost my health in a major kind of way and said, wow, everything that I learned that I thought that I knew about health was complete shit. And I really needed to go back to the drawing board. And And in the back of my mind, digital health had always been there. Since about 2006 to 2008 was the beginning of my digital health career, of helping athletes with Garmin's and Training Peaks and, all of those sorts of things. And I saw the writing on the wall. And so when I lost my health, practice wasn't going well, I closed it down, converted a school bus into a tiny home, traveled the country for a year, found myself, then got into tech, and in 2019 started an AI company and started going down the obsession of this is going to be the future of how we can actually holistically treat patients outside of the healthcare system, because only 3 to 4% of people should really be going into a healthcare system. Everyone else, we now have the ability to do all these cool gadgets and gizmos and things. So that is the 2-minute version of who I am.
When I asked you to be on here, we only interview like motivated, like, strong pushing people. You're just like fucking lazy, bro. Like, I mean,
I really am. Yeah. When I went through my burnout, and I wasn't doing anything on the bus other than traveling around and farming. Yeah, I was very
good
lazy.
Lord, man. That is like, that's out. I mean, we can unpack.
Yeah, that's pretty impressive. Yeah,
that's quite a list, man. So a couple of things that stood out to me in there that I just want to kind of ask a couple quick questions on. So you have an interesting genesis. You came from like the bro boy side where you're like football guy, want to do the NFL thing.
I was very much the alpha male when I was younger.
Yeah, totally. And
what positions did you play? Hold on, back it up. Let's go back. Like, I just want to know how big this dude is. Let's
No, I'm only 6 foot. I'm only 6 foot.
Only 6 foot. Line back. What were we playing
in high school, I was an outside linebacker and tight end. And then when I played semi-pro, I actually switched over to tailback, and we ended up winning. At that time, it was called the National Championship. It was really what was called the Great Plains Football League. There was only 12 states that did semi-pro football at the time. And so I was a starting tailback for a national championship game that way when I was 22 years old, 23.
That's cool. I'm fascinated by professional sports, but I'm also like really intrigued at the people who come out of the other side of that, because it's such a wildly different set of input variables than like your average person, or even your like, like Tom and I are not by any stretch of the imagination average, I would say, but we're still nowhere near, we're not like Dave Asprey. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like we're not going nuts. We're not a Huberman, kind of guy out there. And even for somebody like Tom and I to follow, like a lot of that pro level stuff is literally at like totally different magnitudes. And just one case in point is our friend Brian has this crazy chair that costs like $250,000, and it treats you on like 10 different modalities at the same time. It's like, it's fantastic. But his clients are football, NFL players, like,
and that's who he pitched to first. Where did he
buying
take
them like crazy because they're elite.
In the name of the when you start to get to the upper level, it's the competitive advantage, because everyone starts to become. I would say 15, 20 years ago, everyone started becoming the same speed and size. Right. So what is the competitive difference to get to the next level? Well, most people, like, there's an aspect of proprioceptive awareness that professional athletes have that the average person doesn't have. But in between those types of athletes that make it to that level, it is the person with the fewest mechanical defects wins the game, and they win that position. And it's up to the athlete, not the coaches or the staff. And this is like a crazy misconception of sports, is like, if you don't make your shit, you just get kicked off. And so like they're looking for the top of the top of the top of everything that they can do to like that one little nagging like pinky toe. If that's bothering them, you got to take care of that. Otherwise you're out.
That's like, what was it? Kobe, $2 million a year he's spending on his health or something, right? Yep. You're like, if somebody has a contract that's big, every ounce of performance, whatever like micro fine edge you can get is critical.
And you got to figure too, that's a small percentage of their income at that level.
It
sounds like a lot, but like it's like that's us getting a $10,000 plan if we're making $1 million, right?
No, absolutely. So you develop in, and then you sort of get to this point, which Tom and I mean, what are we, half a dozen people we've talked to on the show, that get to this.
It's got to be more than that.
No,
maybe not at his level.
No, of this exact thing where you get to a critical error in health. Like it's just
it just knocks you out. Yeah, it changes everything.
And all of a sudden you come out the other side and you're like completely refocused and re-energized in a completely different direction. And it's funny, you could use that sort of next level functioning from the previous life to really inform.
For me, I was like that. Decisions. I was that 5-sport athlete and 5-6 sport, whatever you want to call it, of wrestling. And I even was competitive in bowling, of all things. And then I played rugby in the off season. So by the time in college level, it was rugby and football. And then, I went through my burnout peak, lost all my health. And then when I refocused, like right now, I'm on the journey in October. I'm finishing my first 100-mile race.
Yeah.
And so I'm like doing this transformation from burnout to ultra athlete.
Which, by the way, I have to say, when we talked the other day, Dave, I took a little inspiration from our chat, and I have, and I don't believe in coincidences, right? But shortly after you and I talked, I went to New York. I had an event up there, and I talked to a guy who had just signed up for the Oceanside half Ironman in California, and I was just like, a half is like kind of like a heavy day of training. It's not really that hard to do, and it doesn't require like really tip-top athletic prowess.
Yeah, with your background. And Ironman too is like, it's one of those things people, if you're athletic at all, it can just be a fun experience.
It's just fun. Yeah. I love it.
You don't have to push yourself very hard. Like a half is one of those distances where it's you can take your time and look around while you're riding.
Oh yeah, no, I'm taking selfies with like trees. Yeah, no, I'm in it. Yeah, it's funny. The first Ironman I ever did, I saw a shirt. I'll never forget it. And I thought, I can't be the guy who owns this shirt, but I respected hers. It said "Marathons are cute." I was like, oh, that's funny. Like, and I'm like, but I don't want to become that guy, right? Who's running around and be like, oh, your 50-mile run? What the fuck is that? Come on, you're man up. No, I can't. Yeah, no, that's awesome. I actually have been eyeing a 100, but man, I don't love running that much. A buddy of mine who I used to smoke a lot of cigarettes with and drink a lot of beer with, just he got into the ultras. He did like what is it? What's the lowest one? A 30K? Something like that?
Yeah, I think that's still considered an ultra. Yep.
Yeah. So it's like he did the 30K, then the 50-mile. Now he's doing 100-mile.
Yep. Yeah, I'm just going all out. I hate running. So I figured it was, at this point in my life, I turned 45 in October on Halloween. And
that's my brother and sister's birthday.
Oh, nice. Yeah, everyone celebrates my birthday. It's great.
Yeah, it's awesome. Very popular people.
Yeah,
I heard a horrible joke. It's what does Jesus, Martin Luther King, and Abraham Lincoln have in common? All their birthdays fall on holidays. And I thought that was just so like it is so stupid.
That's a great dad joke. I'm gonna add that to my repertoire.
Like, look, man, I had to say it.
That's really funny. Yeah. All right. So now what got you? So AI. I mean, what got you specifically down there? I mean, obviously, it wasn't as huge in 2019 as it was in 2023.
Yeah, I mean, it was, so it started back in the early days when I was coaching my athletes and they were trying to run themselves into the ground chasing their numbers. And I had to have lots and lots and lots of conversations about data and what it actually means and how to actually interpret it and those sorts of things, like real world experience versus what your data is saying. And Training Peaks back then, tried to come up with some cool little gadgets of, oh, this is recovery, this is not recovery. But it was so horrible, and people were just running themselves into the ground. And that was when, I always operationalized things. So in my office, I was way before we had to, I switched over to electronic health records. Like, I'm just that kind of minded.
Sure. Yeah.
Person.
Yeah. And
gears and gadgets and gizmos and that kind of thing. And so in like
it's the perk of owning your own business. If I have to do anything, I'm buying a fucking toy to do it. And that is my right as a male. As a business owner,
if it makes everything faster, right? Like, especially as a chiropractor, you're doing the physical labor why would you want to spend extra time trying to do operational things?
Yeah, Tom,
right?
Tom's
And it just
an
makes
acupuncturist. I don't know if we told you that.
Oh yeah, I fucking hate notes.
Yeah.
I see the cupping books and everything like that.
That's his book.
Yeah.
That is
no kidding.
Nice. Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's
the one thing I got from the company that helped me publish was that little plaque.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
And a nice big bill.
Exactly. That's why I self-published a couple of weeks ago.
Well, that's what I was doing, and they were supposed to help me like through the process. And have I shat on them enough yet, Matt?
That's funny.
But like, I'm like, you guys are moving significantly slower than I think you should be.
Right.
Is it because I'm on a monthly payment?
Oh, that's funny.
Oh man,
But at any rate, in 2015, I started reading. I just geeked out over healthcare, just in general. Amazon in 2015 was already starting to put the word out there of they were buying into health insurance plans back then, and they were starting to do all that, and especially like the precipice of Obamacare when it was coming through. I was in the legislative committee for Wisconsin for the Wisconsin Chiropractic Association, and so I was just aware of all this weird stuff coming down the road that people were trying to come up and talk about. And so part of the deep dive into Amazon was, for some reason, I kept picturing that the future would be this like little photo booth that you would step into, and it'd blow wind past you just like an X-ray machine.
They're doing that in China.
Don't they have that? They
monitor all your epigenetics. Yeah, exactly.
Matt and I talked about that one. We're like, look at this little hut.
Yep. And if you can get the epigenetic, this is me back in 2014, 2015. If you can get the epigenetic expression of everything, you would be able to much more realistically determine what's going on into the body.
Yeah, we got to put some guardrails on this conversation, because we like when you start getting into epigenetic expression, like now, like we could have like a 3-day conference on just that topic.
Yeah, well, let's do it.
Yeah, I mean, it's like,
that's what I'm all about.
Yeah, because like, this interview is not about me, but one thing I will tell you about me is that when I was bored, I took a class on epigenetics.
When you were bored. I thought you said when you were born.
I took like a 9-week,
out of the womb looking at
he has a PhD in epigenetics.
I took a 9-week class on epigenetics just because I was like, you know what? Coursera gave it. It was a epigenetic, or as a genetic researcher out of the University of Auckland, I think it was, out in Australia. She was unbelievably knowledgeable. She was easy to listen to, and I thought I'd take like one class. I finished the entire thing, passed the class, like legitimately passed the class.
Wait, does she have a book?
I don't remember her name. I'd have to actually go look it up. I have a Coursera account. I'm sure it's in my history, but
like I have her book somewhere.
But man, I loved it because, like you, I think, if you can see the world in a wide enough prism, a lot of things make sense, right?
Yep.
Like, and a lot of more things make sense if you only think about the world in terms of horizontality rather than like verticality, right? And I think that everybody I work with in technology really is heavily vertically focused, right? Like, here's a problem. This happened literally yesterday. They're like, this is a problem. It's a problem with this exact thing, blah, blah, blah. And we had to pull focus 2 or 3 levels to realize that while that was a good guess, it ultimately wasn't the case. We were able to easily find out the real answer only because we looked at it wider, right? And so my entire existence uses that as sort of like the foundation, right? Like, as wide as I can possibly look at something, that's the right answer.
Yep.
And when I took that class, I was like, it's like a stick of dynamite blew a wall on either side of my peripheral vision and just was like, fuck. Yeah. Now I could see 100 miles in each direction. And then that was really sort of when AI was starting to rear its head out. And certainly technology was starting to take off and everything was kind of building. And I was like, this thing is going to be bonkers.
Well, when you understand epigenetics too, at a root level, you can understand the downfalls of the current healthcare system and the mechanistic aspect of it, right? If you understand that there's 4,000 different genes associated with exercise, like you can't possibly replicate that in a drug that affects one single chain of things.
No.
Yeah.
We've talked about exercise mimetics on this show a couple times, actually.
We've taken exercise mimetics on the show.
These, like, and I'm like sitting there I'm like, why?
In fact, isn't Son an exercise mimetic? Right. I have one within arm's reach now.
Yeah, right. But so yeah, that's still pretty early though. You jumped in like with not a lot of information.
Well,
like,
I think that's when the first the first utterances of like AI started to come around as a thing,
And,
yeah.
Well, and two, I mean, to me, I've never, I guess this helps from a framework standpoint too, and I wish this more people would do this, is that don't identify with your profession. Identify, like for me, my true north has always been what is best for human performance, what is best for the patient. And I've never identified as a chiropractor. I've always identified as, oh, you need this, and this, and here's your bundle. Like I don't give two shits.
Cool,
that's cool. You don't want to get stuck in your own silo. Yeah.
And so to me, I like, even going through chiropractic school, I'd raise my hand and be like, but there's also this stuff over here, by the way. And so to me, AI was like this very attractive, because when I talk to people and I talk to patients, I go, the complexity of your system, and this is where I came up with my energy bucket concept. So very early on, you'd get the Ironman participants. So I had a big endurance population in my sports medicine clinic. And because I did medical bike fitting, I did every person that came in, I would put them into their sport, and I would analyze them with video and analyze them with movements, and I would grade their ability to do functional movements and things of that nature. So people would come in and they would get these assessments, and they'd be like, oh, I've got shin splints, I've got IT band. Oh yeah, right. That is your problem. But you're also a 35-year-old who has 2 kids. You're a lawyer, and you're waking up at 3:00 in the fucking morning to get your 6 hours of work in before you go to work. And then you wonder why you're not recovering, and there's no muscle activation. There's like no protein synthesis going on, and I had to tell people about their energy bucket of, things going in and things coming out. And professional athletes allow things to go back in, whereas normal people with 9-to-5 jobs or entrepreneurs, and they have kids, like they just don't allow that recovery piece.
Yeah, and I didn't see that. We never talk about the energy bucket thing. So you want to just kind of
I think I'm following them, but yeah, go ahead.
Well, the energy bucket, right? So like when your bucket's full, you're full of life and vitality. You want to get shit done. Like that's the motivated person that everyone wants to be. When your bucket's empty, you don't want to get out of bed in the morning. You're depressed. Like it's just really difficult
you can call
to do
it
stuff.
HPA axis or
I call it an energy bucket because I hate
that's the
spewing
most
medical terms at people.
No, I totally get that. You're just burnt out. You're fatigued.
Yep. And so like we have to have this. And I don't like the term balance. This is why I prefer saying it as an energy bucket of doing things to fill your bucket and doing things to take things out of your bucket. You have to have both, and they have to be constant. And at certain periods of your life, you're going to have more of some things and less of the other. And this solves the dilemma of the best laid out plans is going to get screwed over the day you sprain your ankle, right? Like, then how do you take care of yourself? And so the energy bucket gives us a framework to look at things of sleep, movement, nerves, mindset, like all these factors that go into it. And this is actually how I'm programming AI, is they're quantifiable. You can put in data streams from any kind of IoT device and put them into the different categories. So literally I've programmed AI to understand the energy bucket concept based off of the data points to allow people to have perspective to know what to do next. Because every single day we wake up, there's variability in things that happen to us. And so how do we make adjustments? We have to have a real-time metric.
Right.
And without this perspective, data becomes meaningless. We don't know what our heart rate is. And this is why 8 hours of sleep one day feels great and 8 hours of sleep another day feels really shitty. Yeah. Is that if we have perspective of our energy bucket and where things are going, we know what that data has as meeting now.
Yeah. So the core tech, I think, is novel in the sense that there's not a lot of people. In fact, I don't know of anybody else that basically are making efforts to align with these various objects, right? All these IoT things, right? It's not just one thing you can connect to; it's all the things you can connect to. What I find interesting, and I want to hear, I know it's sort of an in development thing, so we don't want to like share secret sauce necessarily, but
we're
but
good.
But like the the sort of balance of that, the art is of AI, and I've been using this for my tech clients. I say, AI is the revenge of the art student, right? Because it's like art school doesn't give a flying fuck if you can draw. What they teach you is how to critically think. That's it. They don't give a fuck about painting, drawing. You'll pick that up or you won't, but that's not really their problem. If you can think about a problem critically and creatively, that's all they're there to teach you. And that is basically the foundation statement for good AI, right? It's like, if you can think of this critically and have a creative execution of it, the technology is not all that difficult. That'll follow along really pretty quickly. But
I've always thought of technology as a tool to solve a problem. I've never thought of it as a solution. So it's, like you have your problem, you have your solution, and then the tech can bridge the gap. And we're finally at a stage where the tech is complex enough that we can do this.
To understand this many multiple variables and
and it's funny because we're getting into like the weird nitty gritty of it now, where we're finding like the smaller language models are actually better in certain cases than the larger language models. And then, when and where do you privatize the data? Like there's a bit of an emerging,
because right now LLMs are just the WebMD crap. You go on there and it's the same thing that 1999
spits something out to you.
But it's fast. I guess where I was going with that is like right now, as exciting as like the news makes AI, the reality is that the headlines only are, how many billions of parameters can it take and all this other stuff, and the needle in a haystack test and all this stuff that like, Wired and everybody's reporting on. But like that's hitting a wall right about now. Like, and so like we're out of news cycle for that. And so, and while it's happening in the background, guys like you, guys like me, guys like people we both know and talk to, like they are all trying to put these pieces together and say, okay, well, when do I use Minstrel locally versus when do I use OpenAI or Anthropic versus when do I use something, X, Y, and Z. And I think we're still like a long ways off from having the right answer to a lot of these things. So what I was hoping you could maybe dive into a little bit is like, when you're organizing all these parts right now and trying to like fine tune this thing, like just walk me through a little bit of the decision process there.
Yeah. So for me, it's context and perspective. Is that, unless you bring perspective to the data, like I was saying earlier, but there's multiple layers of that perspective. So I'll dive into the solution of what we're creating and have created. Is that really like, if you imagine AI from an LLM standpoint, that doesn't have any relevance to you still, even though it's really smart. You would you at this day and age, you still have to be really good at prompt engineering to get it, and you would have to put in your blood work, and you'd have to try to do all that type of stuff. So imagine a context system where your genetic information is in there, your epigenetic information is in there, all of your IoT data is in a central hub, and all of that is put together from a standpoint of, then there's my coaching framework of the energy bucket LLM that constantly references your data to come up with the solutions of the questions. And so that's where data becomes really meaningful, is that the couple layers deep of getting away from general LLMs and getting more into local, hyper-focused and relevant to you. This is why I always say, and this is really what sold me back in 2015, is this thought process of, great, we're in the age of big data, big frickin' deal. We need the age of relevance to happen. And this is where the next phase of AI is going. For me, that's exciting. It's not exciting yet on a mass scale because people aren't thinking this way. They're still stuck 10, 15 years ago of like, how do I get on my Windows computer? Right? And so people are having a hard time, even 3 years ago or 2 years ago, whenever it was that ChatGPT was launched. Within 3-4 months, I literally canceled 2 months worth of all of my projects, and I just sat on the computer and played around with it because I was like, this is going to grow so fast. It's an exponential of an exponential. I sounded like the crazy person bringing the little
Matt
strings.
used that exact phrase at one point.
Yeah, it's the exponential of the exponential. You guys possibly can't be negative around this. Like, everyone is like, oh, it's got this problem and this problem. Well, like, guess what? AI is going to solve that problem for itself. It knows
those
that.
People are stupid.
I feel like we've had this exact conversation before. So this will solve the problems as quickly as they arise.
Freedom to call them dumbasses, because we are constantly like, dude, what the hell is wrong with you?
Yeah. You know, to me, this next age of data relevance, the age of relevance is where I'm personally pushing. Is that we have to get away from the general.
Yeah, yeah. And when you're getting into this, though, along those lines, are you basically setting sort of your parameters by saying like things like, hey, we noticed, here's my observations of 30 years of clinical or whatever, 20 years of clinical.
Well, we have to unfuckify Google.
Yeah.
So basically, if you think about the way that these large language models were trained, they're trained off of marketing experts' SEO for the past 20 years.
Correct.
That is nothing to do with what's good for patients. And like, when you look at the whole blog structure of what this data is trained on, it is regurgitating the past 20 years of SEO marketing. It is not regurgitating what I know as a provider who's treated over 10,000 patients and seen all of these different aspects. So great, it can currently go take the MCAT and do all of its tests and pass all these little doctor quizzes. But that has nothing to do with how you really holistically treat patients. And this is why I'm hopeful, and I should say really excited about what I'm creating versus regular doctors are creating. Regular doctors are trying to create the previous 20 years of experience, and I'm trying to create the next 50 years of experience.
Yeah, that whole adage about like, do you have 20 years of experience or 1 year, 20 repeated 20 times? Like, like that's that whole. But so one thing, and I don't want to murder this, but I think I briefly talked to Tom about this, but like, there was a data point that he told me about that was like, if he ate a certain amount of protein past like 5 o'clock, his sleep scores went up. Like, I mean, those.
For Ash.
Yeah, for Ash. Yeah.
Yep.
So that feels like science fiction in the sense that like, if you think about the infinite nature of those data points, right?
Yes.
Like, grams of protein in a day is one thing, grams of protein per meal, more specific, grams of protein by time of day, really specific.
Yep.
You know, grams of protein.
And you only know that.
And it's going to get to the point where it's type of protein as well.
Right. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, we're getting there. Yeah, I'm personally getting there, and that's the beauty of this, is that so those are the notebooks that we're creating. Sure. Is we're because all of this data goes into a central hub for the first time ever. We're combining CGM data, so you put on your continuous glucose monitor, you've got your macro tracker, you've got.
Are you a CGM guy, or do you leave that to Ash?
What's that?
Are you a CGM guy, or are you leave that to Ash?
I've had mine. Yeah, it's so my coaching and my authentic is mandatory, and so because what ends up happening is so tons and tons of. One of the problems with healthcare is it's 17 years behind. You talk to anyone who knows anything about current research versus current practice, there's 17-year gap in knowledge.
I'm surprised it's only 17.
Well, yeah, I mean, people like us know that it's way.
Yeah, I mean, it seems worse.
What they say is 17 years.
That seems stratospheric, though.
So we already know that, like, we can start to reliably use a CGM 7 years before the diagnosis of diabetes to start to see time under curve for hypoglycemic, hyperglycemic. And that's what these CGMs are all great for, is you can dive into this research. And I created easy mathematical equations to do what these researchers are spending all this money on math problems. And like, you can figure out all these different ways to do things when you take a practical approach as a provider versus a researcher. And so we can take that research and I can make practical applications in a very short, fast manner. And so we're able to look at your CGM of how much time are you spending outside of your normal parameters. And there's, of course, always normal stuff. Like if you exercise intensely, you can have up to a 400 release of glucose, right? Like you can have these spikes. So but now we have, because we have the power to connect it to your IoT device, your Garmin or whatever.
Sure.
I can actually know, and I can match, like, how many times did you exercise? Was that spike related to the exercise? Was that spike related to what you ate on your macro tracker? And so we can start to really dive deep into micro aspects of time of day of walking, time of day of high intensity exercise. When you were 10% above your normal heart rate baseline versus 20% above your heart rate baseline, like, what is the 2-day effect of that on your stress level? Like, we can now actually see all of that type of stuff. So with Ash and the first person that we did this with, yeah, we saw after 7 o'clock, if he got 35 more grams of protein, he would get 2 more hours of deep sleep. Like,
wow.
it just phenomenal.
Which is like, just a quick pause there. That's like ground. That's earth.
It's groundbreaking. Yeah,
I mean,
it's like
that's a significant percentage,
but,
right
but
there.
more so, like, you know, I've done this for years of coaching people and guessing. We've never had objective data to know if we're doing it right. To keep doing it. And that's the big thing that AI and everything that we're creating is, like, this actual objective feedback where you can use data to be like, and this goes into my energy bucket concept too, is I program things out in 90 days because it's based off of epigenetic change, right? So it takes 90 days on average for genes to start expressing different in your body. When we start a weight loss program, yeah, you can lose weight in 10 days, but you don't permanently lose weight, because your genes haven't switched on to the expression of promoting more fat loss versus you're just losing water weight and you have a cortisol response and you're getting rid of inflammation kind of thing. So we do these 90-day programs and we objectively look every 30 days at the data. Like, you're doing this routine, you're taking these supplements, you're working out at this time of day. Here's the effects. We got over 150 some different data points that we look at from a data standpoint, and then there's an analysis standpoint, and then there's an insight standpoint, and then there's the relevant insights to you on how to move forward. And so this is the first time in history we've been able to do that.
No, I mean, it's awesome. Like, so do you basically, are you in a 3-month cocoon for that first cycle till you get to that end of the 90 days before?
Like, the whole goal is you doing what you want to do. And so, like, we have to go live our lives, right? We can't fully.
No, I meant from you to be like, hey, here's what we found, 0 to 100 at 90 day, at the 90-day mark. Like, are you, like, what insights are you guys getting between you and the patient in those 90 days? Because it's obviously, it feels very like additive, right? You're building this sort of portfolio of knowledge.
Yeah. So the high end coaching that I do and that we've launched is this aspect where you get your CGM, you get your macro tracker. It gets it all at once. We get your genetics, we get your blood work, and then because we don't know anything about you from the past, we make a best educated guess of your routines that you should have, and then you just do it as a trial, and life happens. And then you reflect, and then you move forward, right?
All right. So I got a pretty like I'm wondering if you're aiming at this when you have enough, let's say, patients in that database, will then you be able to take a blood test, look at the epigenetics and go, here's what we're going to start with, and have that dialed in where you can kind of almost put people into specific, like, this is the lane we're putting you in, and then we'll tweak as we need it, knowing buckets. You'll get,
get so better outcomes. The way that I've always, and before I even knew about this data component, the way my brain has always operated, I'm just good at bucketing people into categories. So, like, I can take, that quintessential softball athlete, and we already know the top 10 things about that athlete, right? So this is why I was so quick at making clinical decisions in a sports medicine clinic, and that I could see 50 patients a day, was like, oh, you've got in under 2 minutes, I'm problem solving for people. I come up with my 3 tests to confirm or deny my thought process based off of those buckets, right? And so now we can train AIs to do that, where we can say, this is the epigenetic blood profile, this is the blood work profile, and this is the IoT data profile. What bucket is this? And then when someone new comes into the system, we can categorize them automatically. But even more so, what I'm excited about is that imagine a world where those communities can actually interact with each other.
Oh yeah.
This is like the third phase of where I see what I'm creating and wanting to create is this sense of community of, oh, okay, I'm in this bucket together. What did you do in the past and what can I do? And then let's share in this together. To me, that's really exciting.
Yeah, no, and I think that opens up like a whole bunch of other philosophical tangents that I've talked about in technology a lot. You know, you've always got this thing where when we were kids, right, you had an album and it was 13 songs or whatever. The songs were 3.5 minutes, and then you went on tour for that album. And
Metallica Black Album was my first CD. Yep.
See, I've only got 2 years on you, but man, Metallica Black was like, I mean, my first one was Appetite for Destruction.
Actually. Mine too.
Okay. Yeah. That's funny.
So, definitely a little bit more, but yeah, you like, and I have this conversation with my kids all the time. I can tell you every single guitar note on Appetite for Destruction because I've listened to it that many times. Now it's like one song, one thing, whatever. And it's like, you know, there's this like DNA understanding of something versus like little quick snapshot of something, you know, and it's, and it's just, but like when you look at communities now, it's not like the world tour for Appetite for Destruction, right? Like you're happy selling out a local bar because that's all that's really important. And like this idea,
and those are the biggest fans. Those are the people that get you. Those are
the and just psychologically, that's an amazing evolution, right? I don't have to sell out Madison Square Garden to feel, you know, to get my message across, right? Like you can do it.
As local boundaries have gone away, the technology boundaries have expanded, and it's allowed us to find like-minded individuals, which has been part of the most amazing. Now, social media fucked it up, and
social media definitely fucked it up. But I honestly, this last conversation about community,
they started off going in the right direction. But I think it's going to take people like us who understand that. To bring tech companies together to understand that, hey, you can still make a lot of money, create 1,000 fan over here and 1,000 fan over here and 1,000 fan over here. You don't have to have 10 billion people on your platform to make money.
Oh yeah. Well, this guy Fred I knew at 2006, 2007, he had 311 companies that he had started and sold by the time I talked to him, and he had in binders in his office. But he brought like MRIs from Israel to like the United States. I mean, he's won the Ellis Island Award twice. Like it was real. Also another lazy guy, right? Just not doing much. But he had this USB stick around his neck, 2006, right? And I said, what's that, dude? And this guy's an older dude. In 2006, he was probably in his late 70s, right? Like he's not a young guy, right?
Oh, yeah.
And he goes, it's my genetic code. I was like, that's a weird thing to carry at a networking event. Like what you doing with that? He goes, and then he went off on this like 20-minute thing. One of the companies he was working on was taking genetic codes and saying, we're going to tie as many outcomes to this genetic piece of information on you. And we are going to have a closed loop community that we invite everybody to, but the loop is going to be outside of medical boundaries, because what we want to do is take that lung cancer drug that only is beneficial for 4% of the population. And put it into a location where if you're one of those 4%, you're like, where the fuck is my cure? Well, you know what? All the people that die every day from incurable diseases, how many of them had a drug on a shelf that got shit canned because it only helped 4%?
Almost all of them, unfortunately.
Yeah, right.
Wasn't that Lorenzo's Oil? Wasn't that like one of those movies where they were talking? Maybe it wasn't Lorenzo's Oil, but there was something about, you know, the drug company got sued because they weren't making the drug because there weren't enough patients.
Yeah, and like they have to have mass velocity in order to make it worth it for their bottom line. Which
is crazy. And then when we look at this and those little huts you're talking about, I mean, you go take a piss in a urinal in Japan and it gives you a full urinalysis, and you can put in your information. You can schedule a doctor's appointment right from the pisser. Like, it's crazy.
So this is one of my concepts that I love talking about, is that your bathroom is going to replace your primary care in the next 10 years.
I mean, why not?
I don't think
they
it's
already
be
have
10
all
years.
devices. Well,
the
it's
devices are
10
here.
years because the medical system itself won't go away, unfortunately.
No, but here's the
You
thing.
know,
The tech is going to be, it's here already.
No, but I've got a concierge doctor now that I like. He takes insurance and for this.
Do you pee on him?
I don't pee on him now, but like I just took a Galleri test.
I can taste that sweetness.
Yeah,
Glucose.
Yeah, glucose
he's
is
definitely pre-diabetic.
Yeah, but I took a Galleri test. It's like a 700.
That's actually part of Chinese medicine. I don't.
Yeah, right. Yeah,
we don't do that so much anymore. But
yeah. Oh man, when I was sick, I was told to drink my pee. I was like, I'm just gonna.
No. They were testing it for patients.
I was like, I'm gonna just sit this one out. But yeah, I took this Galleri test with them. It's like a $750 liquid biopsy. It tests for like 28 types of cancer from cellular.
Did you get the results yet?
No,
I know we were talking.
It's going to be this week, but they call it like cellular shedding or something. I can't remember the term for it, but basically it measures what the cancer cells throw off, and it can tell you to a degree of 1 or 2 what it is. So we have detected an abnormality. It's either lung or pancreas or kidney or back or whatever. And it checks for a bunch of the ones you don't want to die from: bile cancer, pancreatic, glioblastoma, like all these, like pretty much all the bad ones, right? The shit you definitely don't want.
The ones that are most missed.
Right. And, the guy, my doctor didn't ask me once if I should or shouldn't, or he just said, I had a bunch of bad stories come in all in 1 week of people, a bile cancer, a pancreatic, 2 livers, and something else. It was like, well, boom, 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 boom. I'm like, God, am I that old where everyone I know is getting cancer? And I'm like, well, everyone's fucking getting cancer. So like, if you can
sadly, the past decade, it's been like an exponential growth in the younger population.
Yeah. We were just talking about that the other day, and it, so where I'm doing all these weird things, they're not weird. They shouldn't be weird anyway. Like, how do you? They
shouldn't be weird. Yeah.
For microplastics,
you care about yourself, and you're trying to do something.
Right.
You freaking weirdo.
I'm a fucking weirdo.
Well, because you're thinking. God, I don't want to say thinking for yourself, because that kind of connotes a whole mindset. But like you're going like, well, what else can I do? How do I sidestep this? You're planning and God, man, I feel like this conversation's been like half science fiction, and you're like, no, rationally, I know this is all here.
Right. Oh no.
And yet it still sounds insane,
Yeah. In order for me to do that, like Dave, I'd love to take your test, like jump on, slap on the, all the meters and monitors and do all the thing, and send that shit right to my doctor and be like, yeah, what he said. Just like, here's our.
You wouldn't even have
here's
to.
our blueprint.
You wouldn't even have to send it to him. He can
have
it instantly.
Share it with him, whatever. Like send it, digitally transfer it, however that happens. But like, my doctor would love that shit, because he's like, dude, this is obviously not the guy who's here because this is cheap healthcare. He's here because there's like a level of need that is not being met somewhere else. The problem with that is it's fucking expensive. And like, we did a whole show on this thing about like, at what point is it that you could live forever if you just had a lot of money, right? Like, and that point,
and there's at least 5 movies that's the concept.
But like that isn't probably all that far away, and maybe live forever is a little extreme, but like, is it? Like, I don't know. Like,
we could do so much more with our current technology, and that's why it was so important for me that the solution that I was creating was independent of a specific device, policy, or procedure. Correct. It was, you have to put all of this together. There's no way you can have anything individually. You have to look at everything.
But you also have a situation where you can sort of crawl, walk, run. Like, if I can't spring for all the doodads, or I don't have all the time because I've got 5 kids and I'm a soccer coach and whatever, I don't have to go balls in. I can say, okay, I'm going to put a toe in the water. I'm going to put like, how about I'll just use my Garmin? How about that? Let's start there.
Yeah, awareness is the biggest key. That's what I've loved the most about these devices, is that they bring awareness. And most of my patients, unfortunately at the 2-week mark, they go, great, it keeps telling me my sleep is shitty. Now what? That's the number one complaint, right? And that's where coaching actually comes in, is okay, now we have awareness. What do we do about it? And when you're left to yourself, unfortunately, even these best intention apps, so Aura, Garmin, Whoop, all of them have these AI-driven recommendation engines. Well, guess what? They're just falling into the healthcare trap again of recommending what works best for big study population correlation, not causation study. And so what ends up happening is, okay, your advice is go get outside in the sun, go get more exercise, drink more water, right?
Oh my God.
Yeah.
The doctor's note that got me out into the concierge path, like my last physical, I walked in, it's like December. I'm wearing a Carhartt jacket with boots on and, my keys are in my pocket, my wallet's in my pocket. And she comes in, she's like, yeah, just jump on the scale. I'm like, oh, well, let me just take some of this off. She's like, no, you're good. And I'm like, okay. And then at the end of the physical, 19 minutes later, there's like all these pieces of paper come shooting out of a machine, like a receipt at a TGI Fridays or something. And like, he's like, one of them is like, oh, I'm borderline obese because my BMI, is 30%.
I'm like, I get that every time, and I'm like, can you deadlift over 400 pounds?
Yeah, but I'm like, you weighed me with like 8 people's clothes on. Like, what are you fucking like? How is this rational? Like, I mean, like, this wasn't even bad medicine. This is just simply not paying any attention.
But that's an outdated system. The concept of BMI is so outdated.
Yeah, but if you are going to measure BMI, don't do it with somebody who's wearing like a
but like if it's crap to begin with, the reason she probably said, "Oh, it doesn't matter," is because it's crap anyway.
Like, doesn't fucking matter. Yeah.
And to Dave's point here, it's not actionable. Hey, you're fat. What do you do with that?
Yep.
Yeah.
Like, oh, can we talk about a diet? No, your MD's not doing that.
I think it was like in 2014 or 2015, something like that. The federal government was trying to mandate that if your BMI was too high, they had to make those printouts to let you know that you were fat and that you needed to lose weight. That was like a mandatory thing that you and as a chiropractor, they were trying to make it mandatory that if I was a chiropractor and I weighed someone and their BMI was too high, that I needed to refer them to the medical doctor to lose weight.
So they're just like entrenching you. They're like, let's keep the money flowing, guys, shall we? Let's just keep...
That's essentially what they're doing, you know?
No, I mean, and so my sister-in-law tells me one time, we had a 2-hour conversation about supplements and food and everything. And she's like, look, we don't agree on this, but it's not because I don't think what you're saying sounds attractive, but it's just like, to be able to acquire this amount of information about this would take me years. And I said, well, it's taken me years. It's like, it has in fact taken me years. She goes, but why isn't there an easier way to do this? I'm like, because nobody makes any money. This is not, you know what I mean?
Right.
Like nobody makes any money, right?
And information gets suppressed.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And so like
we could go down some real big rabbit holes if we want to.
Oh yeah, no, I mean, yeah. And that's the thing, there's no motivation and people could poo-poo this all day and every day and yell and scream about capitalism and a bunch of other shit that doesn't make any difference because it's not going to change. People got to make money, man. Like that's it, period, end of story. I understand that. And shades of gray are, well, how much did the CEO make of this pharma company? Whatever. It doesn't fucking matter. They're making a ton of money. And that's what they're there to do. Just make more of it. So like, we can't. And I can loop
this all the way back into technology and how we can win.
Yeah,
let's do that.
Yeah, let's do that.
Is that because real technology is going to go after the $17 trillion lifestyle industry, not the $4 trillion healthcare industry? Right now, every company sells out into the healthcare industry because they think that that's the payday.
Yeah,
the reality is if you create systems where, like with what I'm creating, it's going to know that you put your 400 miles on your shoes and what your weight and your impact force actually is. So it's going to know when the rubber's out on your shoes and it's going to automatically order the shoes to your front doorstep when you need them. Right? Like that is a $17 trillion industry.
Right. And that's what Brian Johnson, like, I think when Tom and I did like a watch party with his, like his
vice piece. Yeah.
And honestly, the headline with him is obviously this dude's batshit crazy because he spends $2 million a year and has a PA living in his house and fucking all this other shit, right? But the reality is he is batshit crazy, but it is in service of proving a point in the most illustrative of ways. That is, if you have a system and you have a well-designed system that's tailored to you and you adhere to the system dogmatically and without question, then you will win. And you'll win big. Like real big.
Yeah, he does a lot of interesting stuff that the mass population should not be doing. But
of course,
to your point, it's like it's bringing attention to it, which I love. It's Yeah, it's that love-hate relationship, but we have to have the percentage of, just like entrepreneurs, we have to have the people who are like, hey, it's comfortable here, but I think down the river there's this new spot that I want to move our whole tribe, right? Like it's that entrepreneur that says, let's be different. And they're usually one out of, 200.
Yeah, no, totally. But see, that goes back to my AI as an art student thing, right? Like the really creative folks like yourself are doing this work, and they're doing it successfully only because of the creativity part. I audition a dozen AI tools every day, right? At least. And they're all, you can tell right away from the website and how it's laid out, and the fact that like this button doesn't work, that button doesn't work, and the tech, when you download the trial, you download the trial, and the trial, like it's like a tool that's fucking awesome to the 58% mark. And you're like, all right. So you're good enough to get the headline. You're good enough to get a bunch of people to throw down like their credit card for an $8, trial. But like, you're clearly 23 years old. You have no life experience whatsoever. And you don't even understand why this tool could be fucking outstanding, groundbreaking even.
Right.
But you've brought it to here, and we have thousands of those. I can't tell you how many content writing fucking AIs I've tested that are super awesome to 58%. And then they just fucking suck balls. Like right after that, it's like, nope.
Yep.
Some might get into like the 70 percentile mark, but that would be astonishing, right? Like, and there's, unfortunately, you haven't finished your shit yet, nor has anybody else like you, because it hasn't had enough time. So we haven't really seen that revolution happen.
Yep.
Right. Like that we haven't started that race yet. Right.
Yeah.
And it's exciting because you don't know who's in the race. It's a big surprise. You don't know how many people are even racing.
It really is. Yeah. I mean, it's even like, I try to read every day on what's getting launched and stuff, but just like epigenetic research, there's some 4,000 research articles that get published every month in epigenetics, like physically impossible to keep up with. The human brain cannot comprehend.
Yeah, no, not. And that's what I really like about LLMs, right? Because if you could take those 4,000 articles, you don't give a shit about most of them, right? Like, but if you're down your rabbit hole, you're going to know categorically, like, I want these 30 categories of papers, but don't give a shit about those, 50. You could easily write an LLM to start synthesizing those things in the way you want them to. Like, I need this information. I need, these are the kinds of points I want. You can skip it all. And especially when I was taking that epigenetic class, I'm not a scientist. I spent more time on Google looking up what half those fucking words meant than I did actually learning about the course. My wife was like, can you please put headphones in? This is the most annoying thing I've ever seen. you listen to like 3 seconds of it, and then you hit pause and you're on the 20-minute Google rant. I'm like, I know.
You just need to remember phrases that make you sound intelligent, like Waddington's landscape.
Yeah.
That's a big one.
Yeah. So what, Dave, when is the starting line official for you? Like, do you have a line in the sand? Here's what our MVP looks like. Like, how do you know you're ready?
I'm actively reaching out to beta users. So this is kind of, we did all of the groundbreaking work, October, November, December timeframe. And I've just been working on putting everything together from getting my own genetics company. I have a custom, I don't have it next to me. I created a time capsule that looks like a little time capsule, and it's a genetic test that comes to your door.
Oh,
so I've been creating a whole bunch of like really cool
I mean, can you take 23andMe data if people already have it? Can they send you the raw data and get the same? Or are you looking
if it's the raw data? But more importantly, like the system that I have, so I have a contract out with a business that does all of the research behind all of the SNPs. And then so there's a whole platform where they keep up to date on the research of the SNPs and the meanings of everything. And then we take that data, and so we take the raw data and the relevance of the SNPs and then put 2 files up against your data.
I mean,
that's pretty cool.
It is the sign up form for the beta, like right here.
Yeah.
Like, can I?
Wait.
It's
you want
authentic.
You said beta, and I was like, I'm in. Like, what do I got to do?
People can reach out to email, and I can send. So I have a little video on my website, authentic.health, and it's authentic with 2 eyes. And you can go through on the second page. There's an actual video of the program, and then you can email me, and then I can send a little one pager and a little deeper explanation of what the full program outline is and everything of that nature.
Right now, it's a race to see who could fill out the form faster. Tom,
yeah, right. It's
he's only taking one from the Baltimore area.
Yeah. It is. No, I literally am only taking 6 people into the beta, and my goal is to get them up and operational and work through all the kinks of doing this at scale. And then it'll be opening it up, and then it'll also be at the tail end of this. The people that sign up for the 6-month or the year-long is actually going to be part of an adventure networking crew where we actually get together, because this is all geared towards entrepreneurs who want to add 20 years of health span to their life. So the big thing when we start to age, from age 35 to 55, all these things start happening to our bodies that we don't feel or perceive. And so if we can provide interventions at that time to start to move the pace forward, we can easily start to add 20 years of productive health span to someone. In other words, we can get you an ROI into your businesses by actually being able to take advantage of that money. Whereas right now, traditionally, you just start making good money when you're 50, 55. And that's typically when chronic conditions just start to amplify and everything of that nature. So this is really...
obviously earlier the better, but are you get a 55-year-old who's kind of just having this awakening, are they still helpable?
Very much so. Yeah. At any given day. And I've, this is the beauty of the life that I've been given of I just feel very grateful and privileged that I get to do this. I've helped 95-year-olds and changed their life. I've gotten them out of walkers at age 95.
That's crazy.
There's always something that can be done for people. And I just want to make that really clear, is that it does not matter. I've worked with people that have been given only 3 weeks of life left, and even who cares about extending it, but just increasing their quality of life and comfort. There's so much that can be done for people. It's so unreal that people are in this mindset of an all or nothing. And the reality is that at any age, at any condition, we can start to make steps to make a better quality of life for you.
Yeah. And I'm guilty as anybody about that. You kind of when you operate, I'm not, obviously you operating at a whole different level, the pro sport thing and all that stuff. But I really want to do things well, right? So when I get into something, I don't generally kind of put a toe in the wall, I'm not an okay something. I'm usually either
all in,
very proficient and I'm monster about it, or I say not my thing and I move on, right? It's, and so I get that, man. It's and it's hard because when it's your health, it's the most impactful consequence.
And that's why I signed up to do the 100-miler.
Right.
I'm either all in or I'm sitting on the couch.
I'm fucking doing it or I'm not. Yeah. Honestly, not to sound like a douche, but I almost didn't do the Ironman because it was a half. I'm it's only a half.
Just think of it as a fun thing. And, from a mindset component of it is, don't think of that as your end goal. Think of that as the stepping stone to figure out what you want to do and just go have fun with it.
Yeah. And that's what I think actually is the best part about this is I'm learning, and I've spent a lot of time in the last couple of years since COVID, especially, to just see. I got notes here, time is working with me, and don't lose the good in quest for perfect, right? They're literally Post-it notes sitting on my monitor,
nice.
in the face every day, because I'm so bad at this. I need a constant fucking visual to be dude, look, your I screwed that up is still probably better than 90% of other fucking idiots trying the same thing. So I might let's just agree that this was better than not doing it at all, which is my other way of doing it. Right. I'm all right, well, I guess I'm not going to work out all month because I missed the run today. So fuck it. That's the other option for me.
That is both sides of the coin, man.
I'm trying to be better, man. Cool. I've
been extreme too. When my health was really going bad, I almost got into drinking competitions with myself. When my depression was at its deepest, I was there's points in your life where you just feel okay, how far low can I go? And it
just see what happens.
No
we
one's
all
ever
go through
really
these
bottomed
struggles,
out
right?
Yeah. I know we
you.
didn't go too far into it, but like when you were getting out of it, was that like a medical intervention getting out of it, or did you just kind of wake up one day and be like, I'm fucking done with this, I'm getting out of it, and then like start climbing your way out?
It was a 3-year journey of medical interventions that weren't working for me, and I got to the point where my teeth were falling out, my bones were breaking.
Jesus.
Yeah, and my world just fucking collapsed on myself.
Yeah, that sounds terrible.
I thought I was dead.
Yeah. No, that sounds probably like would be my first thought. Like I'm, and that's the other thing.
My first wake. Oh, sorry.
No, go. Sorry, I think there was
my first wake up call was like I was driving to work and I thought, why don't I just drive off the road? I just want to hurt myself a little bit so I don't have to show up. Like that was my wake up call. I hit the rumble strips and like I came to and I was like, whoa, I need help.
Yeah.
And like it was just like it hit me. And then I went down that pathway of researching personal development, and everything's about like, oh, you're lacking motivation. I was like, well, go fuck yourself.
Yeah.
That's clearly not my issue.
Definitely not that guy.
And I couldn't find help. I couldn't find help anywhere. And so then I did all of my own stuff. I thought that maybe I'm just lazy. Like I was doing work 7 days a week. So I was like, oh, I need to sign up for my half Ironman. And that just made things worse. And, all of the things that I had been taught that were supposed to heal me made me worse. And the depression just kept getting bigger. And then the final straw was like my practice, the people that I was going to be selling my practice to went behind my back, started a separate practice, took half my practice with the government contract had backed out. So I lost half my income the year before. Then I lost half my income again when the practice people left. And then I read an article of 2 chiropractors who committed suicide because of financial problems. And I like just sunk into the couch and I was like, I am not going to let this happen to me. What can I do? And honestly, I was listening to Tim Ferriss and Ryan Holiday at that time with Stoic philosophy. And I came up with the mantra of I'm in control of my destiny. And that was when I said, okay, I'm getting rid of everything in my life. And we bought the school bus, got rid of everything. Anything that I owned fit onto that school bus. And we traveled the country for a year with no electricity, no running water. Awesome, yeah. We went and lived on farms and we worked permaculture. We foraged for food, like we went extreme opposite. And it was like the best decision of my life kind of thing.
Sure. Wow. Yeah, Ryan spoke at a group that Tom and I met in actually, and he's got. I mean, his stuff is like, I mean, if you don't change a portion of your life after reading any of his content, then you weren't paying attention. Like he's like pretty got his shit together. You know what I mean? Like I find myself agreeing with him quite a bit. He's a great writer. Cool, man. So, so where do we find you? I think you already said it, but it's authentic.health, right? With 2 eyes.
Yep. That's my longevity company. My personal brand is mindofdave.com. I have my Catalyst journal, which is the energy bucket concept. Yep. So that's I'm going to be adding some of my authentic stuff there too, because, and you guys will get a kick out of this as I start to get into podcasting and I start to get back out into the world, because I haven't been on, I haven't been releasing information for like 7 years. I haven't done much. But as I get back into podcasting, I'll be putting everyone out to Mind of Dave. And that's just like, I'm creating a YouTube channel. I'm documenting my transformation. I actually have a production crew. I'm making a documentary about myself. So that'll be coming out on YouTube probably November, December timeframe.
Oh, that's awesome. Tom and I are working on our channel right now. So if you do get that up, we'd love to put it out there and just link
definitely
over to it. So we love it. It's nice. Very fun. Well, because we realized that we're like, 80 something episodes in and we have them all recorded. And I'm like, well, why are we just publishing the audio?
The whole point of this platform is like, look, it records in 4K. Why wouldn't we?
Yep.
Yeah, this is a fun one too, because when you're done, it like comes out, looks like a fucking TV studio because it's all 4K and it's like the audio's amazing and like we see this low bandwidth.
And you can do the automatic shorts for all your social media. Yep.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like they've got AI on here, and it'll break it up for you and all this cool stuff. But yeah, I mean, it's like kind of what we were talking about earlier with the tech. You're like, well, there's all these tech. It's like, okay, sure, I mean, we syndicated to like 30 different spots for the show because we're like, well, it's not like really that much more than doing one.
Isn't it the platform that we chose? Doesn't that push it everywhere? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's a little bit of work, but it's not like, that big a deal, right? I mean, so cool, man. Well, that's awesome. Thank you so much, Dave, for sharing
Dave,
time
this
with
was
us,
great,
man. This was awesome. We only did an hour and 9 minutes, which I think is probably
that's pretty good. That's actually pretty good for us.
That's a record because good guess, man. I could literally do this for like that's what I love about the Joe Rogan stuff, right? Like a 3-hour conversation with a really interesting person goes about a minute.
Well, we can definitely do that another time.
Yeah, man, I love it. Cool, Dave. Well, listen, thank you again, and have a good weekend, everybody.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you guys very much. I love this.
Yeah, you bet. Dave, hang out.
Be subversive, irreverent.
Health is wealth, but you knew that.
Everybody knows that.
But so is following us on social media at Irreverent Health. And check out our website for more exclusive content at irreverenthealth.com.
Oh, I like this.
Thanks for tuning into this episode of Irreverent Health.